Have you ever wondered what kind of strength lives in a man who walks alone? Not out of loneliness, but out of purpose. In a world that praises constant connection and romantic fulfillment, solitude is often misunderstood. They say a man without a girlfriend must be missing something. But what if he's actually found something deeper? This is the man who doesn't run from silence. He leans into it. He doesn't fear being alone. He draws power from it. While others fill their time with noise, distractions, and the need to be seen, he retreats inward. And there he builds discipline, clarity, and emotional mastery. The Stoics spoke of this path long ago, that freedom is not found in excess, but in control. That true peace is not given, it is forged. So today we're not just talking about being single, we're talking about what it means to become complete on your own terms. We're exploring the uncommon path of the man who lives without a girlfriend, and yet holds something most never will: self-rule, inner peace, and the kind of freedom no one else can give or take away. This is the truth about men who live alone, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Lesson 1. He becomes his own foundation. A man who depends on no one holds a kind of strength the world rarely understands. While most cling to others for emotional comfort, financial help, or simple daily structure, the man who walks alone finds power in bearing the full weight of his existence. He does not break under solitude, he builds in it. What others call loneliness, he transforms into discipline. Alone, every responsibility lands squarely on his shoulders. There is no fallback. If the fridge is empty, it stays that way unless he fills it. If something breaks, he must fix it or learn how. He quickly realizes that no one is coming to save him. This isn't cause for despair, it's a revelation. Because once you see that you're all you've got, you stop waiting and you start becoming. Each act of self-maintenance becomes a lesson in capability. He becomes fluent in the language of self-discipline, budgeting without panic, maintaining order without reminders, feeding himself both physically and mentally. This is not about proving something to others. It's about proving to himself that he can meet life head-on, with or without applause. As Seneca taught, the wealthiest man is not the one who owns much, but the one who needs little. Most people fear being alone because they've never met themselves in silence. They keep busy, stay loud, scroll endlessly, afraid of what the quiet might reveal. But the man who steps into solitude with intention doesn't fear that space. He explores it. In doing so, he learns what actually matters and what is simply noise. Imagine the survivalist, cut off from his team, left to navigate the terrain alone. He does not panic. He adapts. He sets his jaw, sharpens his senses, and makes decisions with clarity. There is no room for panic, only action. The man who lives without backup becomes much the same: leaner, sharper, unshaken. He no longer looks for someone to complete him, because he's already done the work. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that happiness is born not from circumstances, but from how we frame them. A man who builds his own structure doesn't chase completion through relationships or status. He doesn't rely on noise to feel alive. He finds strength in stillness, joy in order, and freedom in his own control. In a world that worships distraction, he becomes the rarest thing: whole. Lesson 2. He draws power from solitude. To most, being alone is a punishment. They equate solitude with emptiness, mistaking quiet for a void that needs filling. But a man who knows himself does not fear the silence. He leans into it. Where others grow restless, he grows still. Where others seek escape, he seeks understanding. He knows that solitude is not a lack, but a sanctuary. In the absence of noise, he finds depth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." The man who embraces solitude enters that retreat daily, not to escape the world, but to sharpen his place in it. We live in a time where the mind is rarely left alone. The ping of a phone, the scroll of a feed, the endless stream of voices all aim to pull us away from ourselves. Most people are never truly alone. They are merely unaccompanied while still immersed in distraction. But the man who masters solitude doesn't flee from silence. He invites it to speak. He does not clutter his life with meaningless company or chase shallow moments to avoid confronting his thoughts. He spends time in stillness because it reveals the truth. about who he is, where he's going, and what he must become. In solitude, he meets his fears without flinching and his dreams without doubt. History's strongest souls were often shaped in silence. Warriors trained in seclusion, philosophers retreated into their thoughts, sages fasted in the wilderness. The samurai found clarity in the quiet of the mountains, and the Stoics found power within, even in the chaos of war and politics. They knew solitude was not weakness, it was preparation. When you remove the world's noise, you're left with only what's real. Your regrets, your hopes, your flaws, they surface. And instead of drowning them out, the strong man faces them. He does not crumble beneath what he finds, he reshapes it. Solitude becomes his mirror, and then his forge. He doesn't depend on distractions because he doesn't fear what lives within. He has sat with his doubt and walked through it. He has questioned his worth and found it. He has faced the full weight of himself and emerged steady. Most men never do this. Most never dare. Too many chase companionship, not out of deep desire, but to run from the quiet. They confuse noise with meaning, connection with completion. But the man who chooses solitude isn't lacking. He is refining. Seneca put it plainly, nothing is a better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company. Such a man cannot be shaken. He needs no applause, no constant interaction, no outside confirmation. The world may view him as alone, but he is not lonely. He is anchored. While others seek validation, he builds conviction. Because the man who is at home within himself cannot be owned, broken, or moved by anything less than truth. Lesson 3. He becomes unmoved by the storms within. Imagine this. A man stands at the edge of a storm. Around him, emotions swirl, anger, frustration, fear, and doubt, all crashing like waves. But instead of being swept away, he stands firm, calm in the chaos. His reactions are deliberate, not impulsive. He is unshaken. This is not because he doesn't feel. He feels deeply, but he's learned that emotions are like the weather. They pass. He does not let them dictate his actions. Living alone forces him to face his inner storms, with no one to distract him or comfort him. When the weight of life presses down, there's no one to lean on. He has to rely on himself. At first, it's a struggle. When frustration strikes or loneliness creeps in, he has no one to turn to for validation or relief. But through that struggle, he learns to control his emotions instead of being controlled by them. He masters his reactions, choosing to pause before acting. In time, this self-control becomes his greatest strength. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The world can throw chaos at him, plans may fail, people may disappoint, but his response is his choice. He can remain calm, focused, and unbothered. That is true power. Living alone is an emotional crucible. Without others to regulate his moods or fix his problems, he develops ways to ground himself. He writes to process his thoughts. He trains his body to release stress. He learns to breathe through moments of anxiety and to sit with discomfort. His peace is not contingent on anything outside himself. It is his responsibility, and he carries it with grace. Unlike many who lose themselves in the turmoil of relationships, who seek constant reassurance, or who panic at the thought of being alone, he remains steady. He knows his worth is not dependent on the approval of others. His inner peace is something he owns, something he nurtures, and it is unwavering. Seneca once said, "A man is as unhappy as he has convinced himself he is." The man who has mastered his emotions understands this. His happiness is not decided by the external world. It is shaped by how he chooses to perceive and respond to what happens around him. And when a man learns to master his emotions, he becomes unbreakable. No storm, no disappointment, no harsh word can move him. He is grounded, not because life is easy, but because he has learned the art of staying centered within himself. Ask yourself, in the face of life's storms, will you remain steady or will you be swept away? Lesson 4. He breaks free from the chains of expectation. Imagine living in a world where you are no longer bound by the weight of constant expectations, where your life is not a reaction to the pressures of others, but a direct reflection of your own choices. Most people are shackled, not by literal chains, but by the choices they make and the weight of others' judgments. They're trapped by debts, obligations, societal norms, and relationships that drain rather than fulfill. But the man who walks alone is different. He doesn't carry the burdens of others' demands or the weight of financial or emotional dependence. Instead, he possesses something invaluable: true freedom. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't see wealth in terms of possessions, but in terms of how little they needed. Epicurus captured this idea perfectly when he said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This mindset liberates him from the cycle of consumerism and the pressure to conform to societal standards of success. By choosing solitude, the man has the ability to control his financial destiny. There are no partner-related expenses, no gifts, no vacations, no shared bills. He's free to direct his money as he sees fit, investing in his growth and future without the need to impress anyone. There's no emotional pull to spend on things that don't truly matter, because he isn't trying to keep up with others. Every dollar earned and spent is a conscious choice, a decision made with logic and foresight. But the true power of freedom doesn't lie solely in financial independence. It's mental freedom. It's the ability to shape your life on your own terms. This man is free from the expectation to conform. He is not swayed by the conventional path that most follow. Get married, buy a house, settle into a job that's not fulfilling. Instead, he is free to take risks, to change course, to live his life according to his own desires and ambitions. Think of how many people feel trapped by silent obligations, pushed by family, society, or their partner's unspoken expectations. They call it stability, but it's actually a cage. The man who embraces solitude, however, has no cage. He is the architect of his own existence, creating a life that reflects his true values. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This is not about avoiding commitment or responsibility. It's about embracing the power of self-determination. The fewer external influences you allow to control your decisions, the more control you have over your time, energy, and future. When a man understands this, he steps into an extraordinary kind of power: financial independence, mental clarity, and a future that belongs entirely to him. This is the freedom that no one can take away, the freedom of a man who walks alone. Lesson 5. He discovers his true purpose in the quiet. There is a moment in every man's journey when he finds himself standing alone, facing nothing but the quiet of the world and the silence within. It's in this stillness that he finally hears the most important voice, the voice of his true purpose. Unlike the clamor of social expectations, the noise of relationships, or the demands of a career, this voice comes from deep within, clear and unwavering. It calls him to something greater than the fleeting distractions of life, a mission that only he can fulfill. In today's world, most people are constantly bombarded with noise, expectations, and demands from the outside world. We define ourselves by our jobs, relationships, social media profiles, or the approval of others. We live in a constant state of reacting to external stimuli. But when a man chooses solitude, he steps away from all of this. He creates space not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, allowing himself the freedom to ask questions that are usually drowned out by the constant rush of life. What is my true purpose? What is it that I am meant to achieve? The Stoics believed that purpose wasn't something to be discovered outside of yourself. It's something to be found within. As Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This profound simplicity teaches that clarity begins when you stop looking to others to define your path and start listening to the only voice that truly matters, your own. A man who embraces solitude has the rare opportunity to answer these questions with honesty, free from the expectations or opinions of others. When distractions fall away, the path to personal growth becomes clear. Without the need to please others, he can pour his energy into what truly matters to him, whether it's mastering a skill, pursuing a passion, or making a lasting impact in the world. There's no pressure to conform, no need to compromise for the sake of approval. His decisions are driven by his values, not external demands, and every step he takes is one toward fulfilling his purpose. This doesn't mean the man in solitude is disconnected from the world. On the contrary, he becomes more deeply connected to his own calling. The quiet allows him to reflect, to recalibrate, and to move forward with intention. While others may stumble through life, lost in the noise, he has found a deeper rhythm, one that leads to growth, fulfillment, and a life that is fully his own. The greatest achievers in history, from philosophers to artists to leaders, were often men and women who spent time alone, honing their craft, refining their purpose. They didn't chase validation or success. They followed a mission that came from within. The world remembers them not for their popularity or conformity, but for their commitment to something greater than themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions. The man who has embraced solitude knows that his worth is found in his purpose and in the pursuit of something meaningful. No matter the challenges, he stays focused because he understands that true power comes from the clarity of knowing exactly who he is and what he is meant to do." This journey of discovering purpose is not easy, and it's not for the faint-hearted. It requires the courage to stand apart from the noise, to spend time in the silence, and to follow your inner voice even when the world around you demands something different. But for the man who dares to walk this path, the rewards are immeasurable. He doesn't just live a life of fulfillment, he creates a legacy of purpose, one that leaves a lasting impact on the world around him. Lesson 6. He forms stronger and more meaningful connections. Imagine a man who is entirely comfortable in his own company, not because he lacks the desire for connection, but because he understands the true value of solitude. In a world where people often surround themselves with shallow interactions to avoid being alone, this man stands apart. He doesn't need the noise of constant company or validation to feel fulfilled. Instead, he seeks deeper, more meaningful connections, choosing quality over quantity. The irony of solitude is this: the more at peace you are with being alone, the stronger your relationships become. Many assume that a man without a partner or social circle is isolated or incapable of forming real bonds. But in truth, the man who embraces solitude is often the one who builds the most profound and lasting connections. He is not afraid of being alone, which makes him more selective in the relationships he fosters. In today's world, the pressure to constantly socialize can often feel overwhelming. Many people surround themselves with others, not out of a genuine desire for connection, but out of fear of loneliness. They fill their lives with meaningless conversations, jumping from one relationship to the next, all in an attempt to avoid the quiet. But the man who has mastered solitude knows that true connection cannot be rushed. He doesn't need constant companionship to feel validated. He chooses his relationships with intention. Seneca once said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." This is exactly how a solitary man approaches his interactions. Because he has learned to be at peace within himself, he is not desperate for validation or approval. Instead, he surrounds himself with those who elevate him and with those whose presence adds value to his life. This applies not only to friendships, but to mentors and even romantic relationships. A man who thrives in solitude does not close himself off to others, but he refuses to settle for anything less than authentic connection. If he encounters someone who shares his values and contributes positively to his growth, he welcomes that bond. But if not, he walks away, confident in his own worth and unafraid of the space that may follow. There's a magnetic power in this mindset, one that others can sense. When you are content on your own, not chasing after attention or approval, people are drawn to you. Your presence is an invitation, not a demand. You don't need anything from them, yet you respect and appreciate them for who they are. And it's in this space that the deepest, most meaningful relationships are forged. In a society where many are desperate to be seen and heard, the man who does not chase attention commands it. He attracts genuine respect, earns the trust of those around him, and forms connections that stand the test of time. Most importantly, he remains in full control of his own happiness, for his peace does not depend on the company he keeps, but on the inner strength he's built by mastering solitude. Lesson 7. He becomes a true Stoic, unshaken by external circumstances. Chaos swirls around him: economic collapse, betrayal, heartbreak, uncertainty. Yet he does not flinch. He stands rooted like a mountain, unbothered by the winds of circumstance. There is something unspoken, almost mysterious, about a man who remains calm while the world trembles. This is not the result of arrogance or apathy. It is the strength born from solitude and inner mastery. While others scramble for approval, panic at every shift in fortune, or crumble under pressure, he remains still. He's learned that life will always throw storms his way, but the only thing he must master is how he responds. This calm doesn't come from pretending not to feel. It comes from understanding that emotions are visitors, not rulers. This is what it means to live stoically, not numb, but sovereign. The world we live in thrives on noise and reaction. People are constantly pulled in 10 directions by fear, media, gossip, and the illusion that more is always better. But solitude trains a man to stop chasing shadows. When you live without constant company, you stop reacting and start reflecting. And through that stillness, you begin to build something few ever find: emotional discipline. Seneca put it simply: a wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be. It's not a quote, it's a way of life. A man who's truly at peace no longer demands that life bend to his will. He adapts, endures, adjusts. He doesn't waste energy wishing things were different. He sharpens himself to meet the moment as it is. When you've lived alone with your thoughts long enough, something shifts. You stop blaming the world. You stop relying on others to fix your problems. You realize that nothing outside of you can grant real peace, and nothing outside of you can take it away. That's the beginning of true mental freedom. He no longer panics when love leaves, when plans collapse, or when things don't go his way. Why? Because he no longer sees life's struggles as punishments. They are simply part of the path. Each challenge is a weight he willingly lifts, knowing it makes him stronger. He has stared into the mirror during his hardest nights and refused to turn away. The opinions of others don't hold power over him anymore. He's spent enough time in solitude to know who he is, and more importantly, who he isn't. His values are not shaped by the crowd. They are forged in silence and tested by adversity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That realization is no longer a theory for him. It is a truth lived daily. He has already fought the inner war most men avoid, and he's won, not because he silenced his fears, but because he walked through them and came out the other side unchanged. He doesn't need applause, attention, or approval. He doesn't fear failure or loneliness. What can you take from a man who has already let go of the world's illusions? Very little. That's why he is unshakable. And it is in that unshakable presence where true freedom lives, not in perfect conditions, but in perfect inner command. So now you've seen it. Solitude isn't a weakness. It's not a punishment. It's a proving ground. The man who walks alone isn't empty. He's full of clarity, discipline, and peace. He doesn't seek validation because he's already met the one person he needed most, himself. And that kind of self-mastery, that's rare, that's powerful. In a world desperate for attention, he is calm. In a culture that fears silence, he is still. He is the embodiment of Stoic strength, not because he's isolated, but because he's free. So ask yourself, are you running from solitude, or are you ready to master it? If this message spoke to you, share it, like it. Leave a comment below, because there are more men out there walking this path than you think. And maybe, just maybe, it's time for more of us to start walking it too. Subscribe if you haven't already and stay tuned, because this is just the beginning.